countless iconic stories, the chosen one is never surrounded by stability for long. No matter how their journey begins, one pattern emerges again and again. They are pulled toward isolation. They lose someone important. They are forced to part ways with loved ones. Relationships that once anchored them mysteriously dissolve, fade, or fracture as their destiny begins to unfold. At first glance, these losses may seem tragic but coincidental, simply narrative devices to raise emotional stakes. Yet there is a deeper pattern, a recurring truth found across mythology, fantasy, anime, and modern epics. The chosen one rarely gets to carry everyone from their old life into the new one. Something, somewhere, always intervenes. And the closer they move toward their destiny, the more people seem to drift away. The question is why? This recurring motif invites us to look closer. Is all of this merely bad luck? Are these characters simply fated to suffer loss for dramatic effect? Or is something else at work? Something deliberate, intentional, and woven into the very nature of their chosen path? When you study enough stories, you start to see the outline of a larger truth. Destiny itself plays a role in shaping who stays and who leaves. Some people are not meant to walk beside the chosen one into the future that awaits them. Some must be removed, not out of punishment, not out of cruelty, but out of protection. Destiny, after all, is not a passive force. It bends circumstances, steers events, and shapes the environment around the chosen one long before they understand what is happening. Often, the first sign of their impending transformation is not a prophecy or a power awakening, but the sudden disappearance of people who once defined their everyday life. Friends move away, mentors fall, loved ones drift apart. Even antagonists or negative influences are pushed out of their orbit, often violently or unexpectedly. These removals are rarely random. They create space for growth, space for clarity, space for destiny to take root, without interference from voices that might hold them back or place them in harm's way. Because the truth is that the chosen one's journey is not designed for everyone. It is not a path meant to be crowded or cushioned with familiar faces. The weight of destiny is too great, the dangers too immense, the evolution too intense. Some people cannot follow the protagonist up the mountain of transformation. Some would anchor them to the ground when destiny demands ascent. Some would unintentionally shield them from pain that they must face alone in order to become the person the world will one day need. And some would simply prevent the chosen one from stepping fully into their role by tying them to who they used to be instead of who they must become. This idea reshapes the way we view loss in these stories. Instead of seeing it solely as tragedy, we begin to see it as design. Destiny removes certain people not because it seeks to punish the chosen one, but because it seeks to protect them. Protect them from harmful influence, from emotional dependence, from premature danger, or from the stagnation that comes from staying too comfortable for too long. Sometimes it clears the path so that the protagonist can see their mission without distraction. Sometimes it pushes them into solitude so they can discover their own strength. And sometimes, fate simply knows that a particular person does not belong in the next chapter of the chosen one's evolution. Once you recognize this pattern, it becomes impossible to overlook. The loneliness of the chosen one is not accidental. It is engineered. Every separation, every loss, every fracture in their social world is part of a larger arc that prepares them for what lies ahead. It is destiny, acting not as a storyteller, but as a sculptor, chiseling away everything that might prevent the hero from becoming exactly who they need to be. In this video, we will explore why this motif appears so consistently, what it means symbolically, and how it shapes the emotional and psychological journey of the chosen one. We'll look at why fate removes people, what those removals accomplish, and how they contribute to the rise of the hero. Because understanding this pattern reveals one of the most important truths in chosen one narratives. Great destinies require great solitude. Before we begin, make sure to support the channel. If you find this kind of storytelling analysis meaningful, please like and share the video, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss upcoming content. Destiny's interference in the life of the chosen one is rarely gentle, and it is almost never random. When people disappear from the protagonist's world, whether through distance, conflict, emotional drifting, unexpected tragedy, or seemingly coincidental circumstances, It is often the first sign that fate has begun rearranging the pieces. To understand why destiny removes people from the chosen one's path, we must examine the guiding logic behind fate within these narratives. Destiny, unlike the humans bound to its unfolding, does not feel sentiment, attachment, or hesitation. It operates according to purpose. It sees a future the chosen one cannot yet perceive, and because of that foresight, it intervenes. Sometimes subtly, sometimes violently, but always with intention. The removal of people from the chosen one's life is not cruelty, it is strategic protection. One of the clearest reasons destiny interferes is that some individuals pose dangers the chosen one cannot yet anticipate. These dangers may not come from malice or betrayal. In many cases, they come from ignorance, impulsiveness, or emotional vulnerability. Someone too impulsive might drag the chosen one toward unnecessary risk. Someone too fearful might hold them back at a critical moment. Someone who misunderstands their role might pressure them to remain in the ordinary world when destiny demands they step into the extraordinary. Fate sees these threads long before the protagonist does. It recognizes who will become an obstacle, who will become a distraction, and who might unintentionally put the chosen one in deeper danger simply by being near them. So destiny intervenes, quietly, decisively, and without apology. Beyond immediate danger, some people influence the chosen one in ways that limit growth. They may provide too much comfort, too much familiarity, or too much dependence. As human beings, we often cling to the people who make us feel safe. But in chosen one narratives, safety is a double-edged sword. It can become an anchor that prevents ascension. A friend who constantly reassures the protagonist that nothing extraordinary is required may inadvertently stunt their evolution. A loved one who encourages them to avoid risk might steer them away from crucial experiences necessary for their transformation. Destiny recognizes when a relationship reinforces stagnation rather than evolution, and it removes that relationship to clear the path ahead. What feels like loss to the chosen one is actually a purposeful disruption, engineered to break emotional patterns that would otherwise keep them from stepping into their role. Emotional dependency is another powerful reason destiny intervenes. The chosen one may rely heavily on a person who provides validation, guidance, or emotional grounding. While such bonds are natural and meaningful, they can also prevent the protagonist from developing the resilience and independence required for the journey ahead. Destiny does not tolerate dependence, not because dependence is wrong, but because the chosen one must eventually stand alone, face trials alone, and choose alone. A companion who provides too much support becomes a crutch. A confidant who eases every fear prevents the protagonist from learning how to confront fear internally. And a loved one who shields them from hardship delays the necessary confrontation with struggle, which is often the very crucible required for transformation. By removing these people, destiny forces the chosen one to build emotional strength that cannot be borrowed from others. Destiny also intervenes to prevent premature trauma, events that would harm the chosen one before they are ready to confront them. Some losses are meant to shape the hero later in their journey, not at the beginning. If the protagonist is surrounded by individuals who might trigger emotional collapse too early, fate removes them to protect the hero's psychological development. This removal might come in the form of physical separation, betrayal, miscommunication, or simply a divergence in life paths. It prevents the chosen one from encountering certain wounds before they have the resilience to withstand them. Fate's protection is not always visible, but its timing is precise. It ensures that the chosen one faces the right emotional trials at the right point in their evolution, never too soon, never too late. Creating space for transformation is perhaps the most fundamental reason destiny removes people. Transformation requires silence, separation, and inner confrontation. A crowded life, filled with relationships, routines, and familiar expectations, leaves little room for the emergence of a new identity. Destiny strips away these layers so that the chosen one is forced to confront the void within themselves, a void that will eventually be filled with purpose, strength, and clarity. Without solitude, there can be no awakening. Without emotional distance from the past, there can be no movement into the future. Fate clears the environment around the chosen one with the same precision a gardener uses when pruning a plant, cutting away what no longer serves growth so that new branches can flourish. Another reason destiny interferes lies in alignment. Some individuals are simply not aligned with the path the chosen one must walk. They might hold beliefs that conflict with the protagonist's emerging purpose. They might represent an older version of the hero's identity, one rooted in childhood, insecurity, or innocence. Keeping these individuals close would tether the chosen one to a life that no longer fits who they are becoming. Destiny understands that identity is shaped by environment. To forge the hero, it must reshape the environment. And to reshape the environment, it must remove people who represent outdated versions of the protagonist's self. This may be painful, but it is effective. The chosen one must be surrounded only by people who support their progression, not their regression. Destiny also removes those who would suffer too greatly if they remained close. In many narratives, the dangers surrounding the chosen one escalate quickly. Fate knows who is strong enough to withstand these storms and who is not. By pulling certain people away, sometimes abruptly, sometimes through circumstance, destiny shields them from harm. This protective instinct extends not only to the chosen one, but also to their companions. Fate does not allow innocent individuals to be destroyed simply because they stood too close to destiny's flame. Removing them ensures that the burden of danger remains focused where it must, on the one who has been chosen to bear it. Fate's interference can also be understood through the lens of inevitability. Some relationships, no matter how meaningful in the moment, are not built to endure the weight of destiny. They are temporary by design. Destiny removes these people because their presence belongs to a chapter that is closing. Not everyone is meant to accompany the chosen one into the later stages of their journey. Some characters exist to teach, to comfort, to support, or to mirror the protagonist's early self, but only for a time. Destiny ensures that each person exits the story when their role is complete. The chosen one may not understand this at first, but with time and pain, they come to recognize the necessity of these departures. The most striking aspect of destiny's interference is that it operates without sentiment. Fate is not moved by emotion, attachment, or sympathy. It sees not the present heartache, but the future necessity. It sees what the chosen one must become and makes decisions accordingly. This lack of emotional bias is what allows destiny to be both harsh and protective. Humans protect through comfort. Destiny protects through separation. Humans shield through closeness. Destiny shields through isolation. Humans act out of love. Destiny acts out of purpose. From the perspective of the chosen one, these removals often feel like abandonment, betrayal, or cosmic cruelty. But from the perspective of destiny, they are acts of alignment, each removal bringing the chosen one closer to the state they must reach. Fate clears obstacles the protagonist does not yet recognize. It pares down their world so that only what is essential remains. And in doing so, it shapes not only the path, but the person. In the end, destiny interferes not to diminish the chosen one's humanity, but to refine it. By removing certain people, fate ensures that the protagonist steps into their power fully, independently, and with a clarity that could never develop in the comfort of companionship. The chosen one emerges stronger, wiser, and more capable precisely because they endured the losses destiny orchestrated. It is a painful process, but it is the crucible through which heroes are created. Loss is one of the most defining emotional experiences in the journey of the chosen one. When destiny removes people from their life, the protagonist does not perceive it as strategic intervention. They experience it as heartbreak, confusion, and abandonment. Whether the separation is temporary or permanent, gentle or violent, gradual or sudden, the emotional impact is profound. The chosen one often finds themselves grieving long before they understand why these losses occurred, and this grief becomes a catalyst for transformation. It shapes their psychology in ways that nothing else could, carving depth into their character and forcing them to confront the realities of their path. The emotional dimension of these removals is not a side effect, it is an essential part of their evolution. In the beginning, every loss feels personal. The chosen one may believe they did something wrong, or that the world is punishing them without reason. They may interpret the departure of loved ones as betrayal, or as a harsh reminder that they do not belong anywhere. This emotional turmoil deepens as more relationships fall away. People who once provided warmth, familiarity, or stability vanish from their life, leaving behind a sense of emptiness the protagonist is not prepared to face. Even when the loss is not tragic, such as a friend moving away, a mentor withdrawing, or a loved one drifting apart. The emotional absence is felt with enormous weight. The chosen one is often too young, too inexperienced, or too overwhelmed to understand the purpose behind the separation. What they feel is pain. This pain marks the beginning of forced solitude, a recurring and unavoidable phase of the chosen one's path. They do not choose solitude. Solitude chooses them. It enters their life as a shadow that grows longer with each loss. The emotional shock of separation pushes them inward, where they must confront feelings they never expected to face. Loneliness becomes a constant companion, not because they lack people around them, but because the people who mattered most are no longer available to anchor them. This emotional alienation becomes one of their greatest teachers, even before they recognize it as such. Forced solitude strips away their reliance on external comfort. It compels them to examine the foundation of their identity without the influence of friends, family, or mentors who once shaped their self-perception. In the absence of these figures, the chosen one begins to learn who they truly are. The quiet moments of loneliness that feel unbearable at first gradually reveal inner truths that were previously drowned out by noise, routine, and familiarity. In solitude, they confront fears, insecurities, and unresolved emotions that would have remained hidden had their old life stayed intact. This emotional confrontation becomes a stepping stone toward maturity. Solitude also teaches self-reliance. When there is no one left to lean on, the chosen one must learn to stand independently. They discover that their survival, physical, emotional, and spiritual, depends on their own choices. They learn to soothe their own wounds, solve their own problems, and trust their own instincts. This self-reliance does not arrive immediately. It emerges through repeated trials, where the protagonist realizes that waiting for someone to save them is futile. Forced solitude breaks the illusion that they can depend entirely on others. Instead, it strengthens the understanding that they must carry the weight of responsibility themselves. This emotional discipline deepens over time. Through separation, the chosen one becomes more controlled in how they process anger, grief, and fear. They begin to channel their emotions instead of being overwhelmed by them. Forced to endure inner turmoil without a support system, they learn to regulate their feelings with increasing precision. This emotional discipline becomes essential in later stages of their journey, where stakes rise and chaos intensifies. Without the earlier solitude, the protagonist would lack the emotional resilience required to face the increasing pressures of destiny. Destiny uses isolation as a silent mentor, shaping the chosen one from within. While a traditional mentor teaches through words, wisdom, and guidance, solitude teaches through absence. It removes the safety net. It removes the comfortable dependencies. It removes the voices that could shield them from grappling with their internal world. In this emptiness, a new kind of clarity begins to form. The chosen one learns what truly matters, what they stand for, and what they are capable of when there is no one left to catch them if they fall. This kind of internal shaping is impossible when surrounded by emotional cushioning. Solitude strips them bare so destiny can rebuild them stronger. Another critical impact of forced separation is the sharpening of responsibility. When people are removed from the chosen one's life, the protagonist feels the absence of guidance and support, but they also feel the increase in burden. Without someone to consult or lean on, they must make decisions on their own. These decisions may be imperfect, but they are theirs. Through every choice, they gain agency, wisdom, and accountability. The emotional impact of loss becomes intertwined with a growing sense of responsibility. The chosen one begins to understand that their actions matter, that their path is theirs alone, and that others cannot carry it for them. Destiny ensures they learn responsibility not as a concept, but as a lived emotional experience. Separation also creates emotional space for the chosen one to grow into a new identity. When surrounded by people who knew their old self, evolution becomes harder. Familiar faces often anchor a person to their previous version, whether intentionally or unconsciously. When those people are removed, the protagonist no longer has to live within those expectations. They are free, frighteningly free, to reinvent themselves. This reinvention process is painful because it requires letting go of the warmth that their old identity brought, but it is also liberating because it opens the door for transformation that would be impossible in a life surrounded by emotional anchors. In many Chosen One stories, the emotional impact of loss also awakens a deeper sense of purpose. When someone they love is taken from them, or leaves them behind, it ignites something within. Their grief becomes fuel, their loneliness sharpens into determination, their longing for connection becomes the foundation upon which they build empathy and compassion for others. Pain becomes the emotional forge that burns away immaturity and reveals the core of their emerging character. Loss is not meant to break them, it is meant to deepen them. Forced solitude also prepares the Chosen One for the emotional distance they will inevitably face later in their journey. As they rise in power, role, and responsibility, they become increasingly separated from ordinary life. They become someone others look to, not someone others can walk beside. Destiny ensures they experience this distance early, so that they can withstand it later. The emotional shock of early separation prepares them for the immense emotional expectations placed upon them when they fully step into their role. Without this preparation, the pressure of being relied upon by many, while having few to rely on, would be unbearable. Over time, the Chosen One begins to reinterpret their early losses. What once felt like abandonment begins to reveal itself as preparation. What once felt like emotional cruelty begins to look like a necessary transition. What once shattered their heart becomes mosaic pieces of a stronger, wiser emotional self. They begin to understand that destiny did not remove people to punish them, it removed people to refine them. The emotional clarity that emerges from this realization becomes one of the most powerful turning points in their journey. And yet, despite all the growth solitude offers, the emotional pain never entirely disappears. Instead, it becomes part of their story, a scar that symbolizes transformation. The Chosen One carries their losses with them, not as chains but as reminders of how far they have come. Their resilience is not the absence of emotional suffering, but the mastery of it. Forced solitude may be the most difficult phase of their journey, but it is also the most foundational. It builds them from the inside out, forging their emotional identity in ways no external mentor ever could. Destiny uses these removals to sculpt a hero capable of standing alone in moments when the world needs them most. The emotional weight they carry becomes the very source of their strength. Their solitude allows them to evolve into someone capable of making impossible decisions. Their grief becomes the foundation for their compassion. Their isolation becomes the bridge between who they were and who they must become. And in the end, every painful separation becomes proof that destiny was not trying to break them. It was trying to build them. Transformation in Chosen One narratives rarely happens in crowded rooms or within the comfort of familiar relationships. It emerges in silence, in empty spaces, in long stretches of time where the protagonist has no one left to lean on but themselves. Once destiny removes incompatible influences from their life, the Chosen One enters the most accelerated and unforgiving phase of their evolution. This phase is not gentle. It does not nurture with warmth or reassurance. Instead, it reshapes the protagonist through solitude, an isolation that strips away everything unnecessary so that what remains can be reforged into something powerful, focused, and unbreakable. It is within this crucible of loneliness that the Chosen One becomes who they must be. With the people who once grounded their identity gone, the Chosen One finds themselves standing alone at the threshold of transformation. The emotional entanglements that once tied them to an old version of themselves begin to loosen. Bonds that once defined their choices, their worldview, or their self-image no longer hold them in place. This absence does not immediately feel liberating. In the beginning, it often feels like disorientation, like wandering through a landscape where the landmarks of their past life have vanished. But it is precisely this emptiness that creates the conditions for rapid evolution. Without the gravitational pull of old relationships and expectations, the Chosen One becomes free to move in directions they never considered possible. This freedom exposes them to the raw truth of who they are beneath the layers of familiarity. The Chosen One is forced to confront versions of themselves they once avoided. Fear that they distracted themselves from must now be faced head-on. Doubts they silenced with companionship must now be wrestled with internally. Weaknesses they hoped others would compensate for must now be acknowledged and transformed. Isolation removes the option to hide. It removes the option to fall back on external support, and this absence compels the protagonist to seek strength within themselves, strength they might never have discovered if the people around them had remained. As they confront these internal struggles, the chosen one begins uncovering hidden capacities. They find resourcefulness born from necessity. They discover resilience emerging from repeated emotional trials. They learn to tap into instincts sharpened by solitude. With each challenge they face alone, they unlock abilities, clarity, and mental fortitude that had been dormant. Destiny clears their environment, not only to protect them, but to reveal what has always been within them, waiting for the right conditions to be awakened. These hidden capacities become essential tools for the challenges that lie ahead, preparing them to stand at the center of conflicts that no one else could survive. Isolation also sharpens their purpose. In the noise of ordinary life, purpose can become diluted. Surrounded by voices, opinions, and distractions, it becomes difficult to hear the quiet internal call that destiny plants within them. But when the world around them grows still, purpose rises to the surface. The chosen one gains clarity about what they must do, who they must become, and why their journey matters. They begin to see the broader patterns that weave through their experiences, the ways in which every separation, every hardship, and every moment of solitude has been preparing them for something greater. Purpose becomes the compass that guides them forward when everything else feels uncertain. This sharpened sense of purpose begins to reshape the chosen one's identity. With no one left to define them through past assumptions or roles, they begin defining themselves. This self-definition is one of the most transformative aspects of their evolution. It is no longer influenced by what others expect or what the world once told them they were. Instead, it emerges from their inner truth, their lived experience, and their growing understanding of destiny's design. They become someone new, not in the sense of abandoning who they were, but in the sense of becoming the fullest version of that person. Isolation becomes the environment where that new identity takes shape. Fear becomes another major force in this phase of transformation. When isolated, the chosen one cannot avoid fear. They must face it. And in facing it, they begin to understand it. Fear stops being a shadow that follows them and becomes something they can study, challenge, and eventually master. Mastery of fear does not mean eliminating it. It means learning to act despite its presence. This emotional evolution gives rise to courage that is internal rather than borrowed. It becomes courage rooted in self-knowledge, not in the reassurance of others. This kind of courage is essential for fulfilling their role. Without it, no chosen one could withstand the trials destiny places before them. As fear transforms into courage, uncertainty transforms into conviction. Decisions that once felt overwhelming begin to feel necessary. Paths that once seemed impossible begin to reveal themselves one step at a time. The chosen one's internal landscape shifts as they become more aligned with their role. Isolation pushes them to trust themselves, to rely on their intuition, and to take responsibility for each choice. This kind of agency cannot develop while surrounded by emotional dependencies. It requires solitude, a solitude destiny often enforces for this very purpose. This transformation also involves building emotional independence. Without those who once comforted, affirmed, or guided them, the chosen one learns to process emotions in new ways. They develop the ability to steady themselves during emotional storms, to regulate their own responses, and to maintain clarity under pressure. Emotional independence becomes a defining trait, strengthening their mind for the battles ahead. The loneliness that once felt unbearable begins to feel like a training ground, a place where emotional turbulence becomes stability through repeated confrontation and mastery. Over time, their physical, mental, and emotional endurance increases. Isolation toughens them. It strips away fragility and builds a foundation of strength that is not easily shaken. They learn to carry burdens without collapsing beneath them. They learn to endure hardship without losing themselves. They learn that strength is not something given, but something earned through struggle. This endurance becomes one of their greatest assets, allowing them to withstand the magnitude of destiny's demands. As they grow through isolation, the chosen one begins to embody the traits necessary to fulfill their role. They become more resilient, more perceptive, more courageous, and more grounded. Their thinking becomes sharper, their instincts become keener, their emotional world becomes steadier. Each moment of solitude adds another layer to the person they are becoming. They begin to resemble the figure destiny always intended them to be. The figure capable of shaping the future, confronting darkness, or fulfilling prophecy. In this way, isolation acts as the architect of transformation. It dismantles the old self and constructs the new. It removes the noise of the outside world so the chosen one can hear their own voice. It removes unnecessary attachments so they can stand unburdened. It removes comfort so they can develop strength. Every facet of their evolution is tied to the solitude destiny orchestrates around them. Eventually, the chosen one emerges from this isolation transformed. They step forward with a sense of purpose that is unwavering, with strength that is internally forged, and with an identity aligned fully with destiny's design. They no longer fear the path ahead because they have already endured the emptiness that once terrified them. They no longer doubt their capability because they have discovered their own depth. They no longer cling to who they used to be because they have become someone greater. This is the moment where the ordinary individual disappears. In their place stands a figure shaped by fate, someone who has endured loneliness, loss, and silence, and emerged not broken, but refined. A person who now possesses the clarity, strength, and emotional fortitude necessary to fulfill the destiny they once resisted. The transformation is not dramatic in a physical sense, but profound in a psychological one. It changes everything about how they think, how they feel, and how they move through the world. Destiny's removal of people from their life was never about punishment. It was about preparation. It was about crafting the exact conditions required for evolution. Through the solitude it imposed, Destiny created not just a hero, but the only hero capable of carrying the world forward. Destiny's role in removing people from the chosen one's life is not rooted in cruelty, and it is never an act of malice. Instead, it is an act of necessity, a deliberate intervention that clears the path for transformation. Throughout the chosen one's journey, every separation, every unexpected loss, and every quiet drifting of relationships serves a purpose that becomes clearer only in hindsight. Destiny prepares the hero not by surrounding them with comfort, but by stripping away everything that might shield them from growth. It protects them not by keeping danger away, but by removing influences that would weaken their resolve or prevent them from facing the challenges ahead with full clarity. These removals reshape the chosen one's inner and outer world. People who cannot walk with them into the future, whether because of emotional entanglements, conflicting beliefs, or the fragility of their connection, are guided out of their path. In the moment, this feels like heartbreak, abandonment, or cosmic unfairness. But as the chosen one evolves, the purpose of each separation becomes undeniable. Without these losses, they would not have the emotional independence required to shoulder the weight of destiny. Without this solitude, they would not have discovered the strength within themselves. Destiny ensures that the chosen one becomes someone who can stand alone when the world demands it, someone who can face trials that would break others, someone who carries not only power, but the maturity to wield it. This motif appears again and again across storytelling traditions because it resonates with a universal truth. Great journeys often require great solitude. Anyone who has ever stepped into a transformative phase of life knows that not everyone can accompany you. Sometimes people fall away because you are changing. Sometimes they leave because they belong to an earlier chapter. And sometimes life itself rearranges your relationships to make room for who you must become. The Chosen One's story magnifies this truth, showing that heroes are not only forged in battle, but shaped by the silence left behind when destiny removes the people who no longer align with their path. In the end, destiny is not isolating the Chosen One to punish them, it is refining them. From that solitude, heroes are born. From those painful separations, strength emerges, and from the emptiness created by loss, purpose takes root. If you appreciated this exploration of destiny, symbolism, and character evolution, support the channel by liking and sharing the video. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss upcoming content.